Alrighty, welcome to the Altar of the Brood podcast. The name is Paul, also known as MTG Anonymous on YouTube, Twitter, and all those other places. And today, after dealing with a whole bunch of issues with basically electronics, we're going to be doing a Zirda the Dawnwaker 3D deck. So basically what I've been trying to do lately is trying to make a 3D deck out of each one of the new companion cards. Now, companion has been announced to work in 3DH as to opposed to what the last two things I said in the last two podcasts. But we don't really have the budget for making companion work. So we're going to use Zirda the Dawnwaker as the commander, and let's go ahead and get into that now. Zirda the Dawnwaker is a Boros legend for one Boros, so either red or white. You get a 3/3 elemental fox. It has companion. Each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. If it is, then it starts in its own separate companion zone, and you can cast it one time from outside of the game. And then also, abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana in the cost to less than 1, and then for 1 in tap, target creature can't block this turn. So as you know, Boros has to have something that involves attacking, but regardless, Zirda the Dawnwaker is really good at what it does, and then the promo version is 0.1 ticks, so it is legal. But you can also find one for 0.88 ticks, which is still legal, but it kind of makes the budget a little more tough. There are 14 creatures, 8 spells, 36 artifacts, 5 enchantments, and 36 lands. Obviously, each one of these is going to have a tap ability, well, mostly, but for this time, we're going to be focusing on making as many tokens as possible, and then having tap effects that cause us to gain something from those. First off is Anointer Priest for 1 and a white. It's a 1/3 creature human cleric. Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain a life. And then Embalm is 3 and a white. Embalm says exile this token, or exile this card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it is a white zombie with no mana cost. Well, this is a white zombie human cleric. I don't know how that works, but whatever. And then Embalm is only the sorcery, so only its sorcery speed. So basically what happens is as tokens enter, we gain life, and then once we gain that life, well, we'll do something with that later, but we also Embalm, and then it makes the token, so it gets that plus, that 1 life from the token entering. Loyal Apprentice is next. Anointer Priest said when a token enters, now Loyal Apprentice is going to allow us to make a token every turn. For 1 to red, you get a 2/1 human artificer with haste, and it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. That token gains haste until end of turn. So basically what happens, we want Anointer Priest out. Anointer Priest we can get turn 2. Loyal Apprentice we can get out turn 3. And then Zirda we can get out turn 3. And then every turn at the beginning of our combat we get a 1/1. So now Anointer Priest has us gain 1 life from it. Bygone Bishop's next for 2 and a white. It's a 2/3 spirit cleric with flying. Whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, investigate. Now there aren't many of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them, not including Bygone Bishop. So that means we can investigate 6 times. And then investigate says put a colorless clue artifact token onto the battlefield with 2. Sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So this is an activated ability on those clues. So Zirda will make that say 1, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. So now for 1 mana and then sacrificing that artifact, you draw a card. So basically card draw. Captain Lannery Storm's next for 2 and a red. It's a 2/2 legendary creature human pirate with haste. Whenever it attacks, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And then whenever you sacrifice a treasure, Captain Lannery Storm gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Again, we're making tokens, so now granted, it's not a creature token, so it does not trigger Anointer Priest, but we still make tokens. We get a little extra land each turn, a little extra mana, and then once we need it, we can tap it all. And then Captain Lannery Storm gets big, do a lot of damage. Foundry Inspector's next. Foundry Inspector for 3, it's a 3/2 artifact creature construct, and then artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Now, we've got quite a few, again, 36 artifacts, so making them 1 less to cast is pretty important. Mirror Propagator's next. For 3, it's a 1/1 artifact creature mirror with 3 tap. Put a token that's a copy of Mirror Propagator onto the battlefield. So, depending on how well you do with this, you can make a whole bunch of these. Now, if you have a way to give them haste, which we do, then each turn with Zirda out, it's 1 tap, put a token that's a copy of Mirror Propagator on the battlefield, and then when that one comes out, we can pay 1 and tap that, and then we can do that over and over again until either A, we run out of mana, or B, well, it doesn't make sense to do that anymore. Now, those tokens will trigger Anointer Priest, and we'll have a whole bunch of mirrors on the battlefield. Palladium Mirror's next. For 3, it's a 2/2 artifact creature mirror. It says tap, add 2 to your mana pool. Now, the 2 colorless to the mana pool is because, well, we have a lot of artifacts, and then a lot of things that have not colored mana in their mana cast, so it's pretty important that we do stuff like that. Amaria Shepherd, for 2, a white and a white, to get a 3/3 creature angel with flying. Whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, you may put a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So again, Anointed Priest is in the deck, so we want as many tokens as possible. Now these, again, will trigger Anointed Priest, and they also have flying, so the Loyal Apprentice and Amaria Angel both have it so that we make flying tokens. Golden Guardian's next for 4. We used this in the last deck, but it's an artifact creature golem. It's a 4/4 with Defender for 2. For 4, pay 2. Golden Guardian fights another target creature you control. When it dies this turn, return it to the battlefield under your control. Now, we're going to be making a whole bunch of tokens, and Zirda is going to make this so it only costs 1. So, worst comes to worst, we pay 4 for this. We have all 5 of those things die because the Golden Guardian will die. And then after that, it comes back as the Goldforge Garrison. Goldforge Garrison says tap, add 2 mana of any color to your mana pool, or 4 tap, create a 4/4 colorless golem artifact creature token. It's a land. So now what happens, Zirda sees this, and it makes that tap ability only 2, so now it's 2 tap, create a 4/4 colorless golem. So 2 for a 4/4 is really good. Now, if Zirda's not out, 4 for a 4/4 is not bad. It's also a creature token, so that means it triggers Anointer Priest. Joy was Familiar for 4. It's a 2/2 artifact creature bird with flying. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Again, a whole bunch of artifacts. And then we got a whole bunch of artifacts, and then Zirda. This also triggers on Captain Lannery too, so Captain Lannery will only be 2 cost instead of 3, so helps out a lot. Drug Skull Cavalry for 5, a white and a white. It's a 4/4 creature spirit knight with flying. Whenever another spirit enters the battlefield under your control, you may gain 2 life. And then for 3 and a white, put a 1/1 white spirit creature token onto the battlefield. So again, with Zirda, it'll be 1 and a white. Now 2 mana for a 1/1 white spirit creature token. Not very good, but paying 2 mana to gain 3 life, because Anointer Priest is going to allow us to gain 1 life. And then Drag Skull Cavalry is going to have us gain 2, so 3 life for 2 mana is pretty good. And then we also get the 1/1. So that basically is really important. Again, want to keep putting creatures on the battlefield, and then we'll do something with them eventually. Mary Shepherd's next for 5, a white and a white. This is our recursion engine. It's a 4/4 creature angel with flying and landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return target non-land permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If that land was a plains, you may return that non-land permanent card to the battlefield instead. Now, the reason this is in here is because, well, Boros is always going to play a lot of plains. I won't tell you how many. You will get to that in a minute. But there are a lot of non-land permanents in this deck, so Amaria Shepherd should probably be in every single white deck you run, and then while it may not be able to do broken stuff, it's still very good in this deck, especially since we have some pretty big artifacts that sacrifice themselves, or we have ways to draw cards but sacrificing items, so that way we grab the plains, we can return them. Rhea Dawnbringer is next. For 6 white, 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 you get a 4/6 legendary creature angel with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to play. Again, now we don't have many creature cards, seeing as there are only 14, but they are really important to have them out, especially the Anointer Priest, Captain Lannery, seeing as that's our ramp in this deck, and then also the Foundry Inspector, Joy was Familiar. Those 2 cards also make our artifact cheaper, so they're important to keep too. Now, Mary Shepherd, not so much, but if it's in the graveyard and you have permanents in the graveyard, grab it and then play plains that turn, and then you grab something else. So that would be 2 for the price of 1. We got 8 spells. Wake the Reflections is first. For 1 white, it's a sorcery Populate. Populate says put a token on the battlefield. It's a copy of a token you control. So we got many ways to make tokens in this deck, so Populate for 1 is not bad. Clear is next. For 1 and a white. You can get an instant that says destroy target enchantment. It has cycling 2, and then cycling says discard this card, draw card for the casting cost, which that's 2. Now, I don't know how cycling and Zirda work together, but if it does work how I think it would work, then it would be 1. Clean falls next. For 2 and white. It's sorcery. Arcane, destroy all enchantments. Now, we only have 5 enchantments, so we are not necessarily hurt by this as bad. Now, there are some that are important, but we are not hurt as bad as other opponents would be. Devouring Light's next. For 1 and white and a white. You get an instant with Convoke. We'll go over that in a second. But the instant says exile target artifact, target attacking or blocking creature. And then Convoke says you may tap a creature as you pay this, and then for each creature you tap while casting it, it either pays for 1 generic or 1 mana of that creature's color. So most of our creatures are white, so we tap them, we pay the white pips, and then we like to pay the 1, or we can pay using our artifact creatures, and then pay the 1, and then have to pay 2 white. Root Band of Fences. For 2 and a white, it's an instant Populate, and then creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. This is more of a combat trick on our turn, because we're going to be able to swing at our opponents, make our millions of tokens indestructible, while Populate 1, and then make them indestructible, and then that way on our turn, they're still around, we get to swing again. Empty the sky. Eyes in the Sky. For 3 and a white, it's an instant. Create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying, then Populate. Again, make a creature token, make a copy of a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. Phyrexian Rebirth. For 4 white and a white, you get a sorcery, destroy all creatures, then put an XX colorless horror artifact creature token on the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. Now, the reason there are Populate effects and then also ways to return creatures out of our graveyard. We play Phyrexian Rebirth as a board wipe. We get a giant XX horror artifact creature token, and then if we have Wake the Reflections, Rootborn Defenses, we can play those afterwards, and then we get copies of that artifact creature token. Tristani's Judgment's last. For 5 and a white, it's an instant exile target creature, then Populate. So 6 to exile a creature, not so good, but again, Phyrexian Rebirth is in the deck, so if we get a 9/9 horror token, then we get another 9/9 horror token with Tristani's Judgment. So it's just doing what it needs to do. Next off, name of the podcast, Alter the Brood. That is the first artifact in the deck. It's for 1. It's an artifact. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. This is a token build, so token builds are relatively important the way we want to do this. So as tokens enter the battlefield and or lands and or artifacts or creatures, normal creatures, then we're going to have each of our opponents mill 1, and then mill 1, and then mill 1, and then it gets really annoying, and then they're really not able to do anything. Dispeller's Capsule. For white is an artifact. Pay 2 and a white. Tap, sacrifice a Dispeller's Capsule, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So this is one of those targets that Amaria Shepherd would want to grab, seeing as it says it'll be a non-land permanent. So Dispeller's Capsule, we pay the 2 and a white, or if Zirda's out, we pay white, and then sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment, preferably that our opponent controls, and then we pay a land, and then use Amaria Shepherd to bring Dispeller's Capsule back. Now, if it's a mountain or one of our non-basics that we play, then it'll just go into our hand, but if we play a plains, then we get to put it straight on the battlefield. Now, I don't know if that's a good use of that ability, but whatever. Don't judge me. Explore Scope's next. For 1, it's an artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put it on the battlefield tapped. So again, Boros has a really hard time ramping. We won't really be doing a whole bunch of attacking, but it only costs 1 to equip this. So what we'll do is we'll equip this to one of our not our artifacts, but our tokens. Then swing with the token. If it dies, it dies. We can equip this for 1 to somewhere else, but we get to look at the top card of our library, and if it's a land, put it on the battlefield. So Prying Blades next for for one colorless. It's an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a colorless treasure artifact token. With tap, sacrifice this creature, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So Captain Lannery Storm and this card synergize together because Captain Lannery Storm is going to make 1 treasure token every time we attack. And then this one, once a card deals damage, creature deals combat damage, then we get to make another token. So now we sacrifice those 2 tokens whenever we get a chance, and then Captain Lannery Storm is bigger because of that. Pyramid of the Pantheon for 1. Oh, also Zirda causes equipped cost to go down, so this will only cost 1 to equip instead of 2. Pyramid of the Pantheon. This card actually doesn't work the way I thought it would, but I'm going to keep it in here anyway, because I just like the way it makes more mana. But for 1, you get an artifact, pay 2 tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, put a brick counter on Pyramid of the Pantheon, and then tap, add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. Activate this only if there are 3 or more brick counters on Pyramid of the Pantheon. So because this is a mana ability, because we're adding mana, we are not able to make that 2 go down to 1, even though that would be awesome. But once we get through that ability, then we get to add 3 mana of 1 color. So more than likely it's going to be white or red because we're in Boros, but you never know. Armillary Spear for 2, it's an artifact. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice Armillary Spear. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Again, Zirda's going to see this, so it's going to make it 1 tap sacrifice. So it just makes this just a little bit better. Candles of Ling is next for 2. It's an artifact. Pay 4. Tap, reveal the top card of your library. If it's the same name as a card in your graveyard, put it in your graveyard. Otherwise, draw a card. So this card is great in EDH. I'd probably put this mostly, in mostly decks that don't have lands going in the graveyard because lands share the same name, more specifically mountains and plains. But this allows you to draw a card every turn. Also, Zirda sees this, so it only costs 2 and tap, reveal the top card of your library. So we can keep doing this. Also, if there's no, I guess that doesn't really matter, so ignore that thought. Captain's Claws is next. For some reason, it's not popping up. There we go. For 2, it's an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and then whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 white core ally creature token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. The equip cost is 1. So the reason that's in here, again, makes tokens, and then there are also core ally tokens. Now, we don't have any other allies that matter, but I just like core ally tokens. So, Cogworker's Puzzle Knot for 2. It's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token, and then for 1 and a white, sacrifice it, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. So basically, for 4 mana, we make 2 2/2s. 2 1/1s, but also Altar of the Brood will see the Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, and so that'll also cause a mill. But basically why this is in here is because we can use a Maria Shepherd to bring it back, and then if we bring it back with a Plains, it comes in for free, and then we get the 1/1, and then we only have to pay the 2 and make another one. Now also, Zirda will see this, like I said, and like I have been saying, and then what'll happen is it'll only cost white. So instead of being 4, it's only 3. Prophetic Prism. This is another one that doesn't work it doesn't really matter anyway, but for 2, it's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. That's basically what that's in here for. And then also, if we have to discard or lose an artifact, this is what we're going to choose. And then pay 1 and tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I was kind of thinking this would work, but then I remembered that it doesn't reduce it to less than 1 anyway, so regardless, it didn't work. Rogue's Gloves is next for 2. It's an artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature deals damage to a player, you may draw a card. And then equipped is 2, so Zirda will make that 1. So yeah. Scroll of the Masters for 2. It's an artifact. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a lore counter on a Scroll of the Masters. And then for 3 and tap, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each lore counter on Scroll of the Masters. So we've got a lot of non-creature spells in this deck, 36 of them being artifacts. So as we cast those, we get more lower counters, and then for 1 and tap, when Zirda's out, we get a +1/+1 counter on a creature. So there are going to be a whole bunch of lower counters on this on this artifact, and then that'll make a whole bunch of +1/+1s. Now, unfortunately, they're not counters, so at the end of turn, they will leave, but they're still good. Shrine of the Loyal Legions, for 2, it's an artifact at the beginning of your upkeep or whenever you cast a white spell, which there are a couple of them in here. A charge counter. You'll put a charge counter on Shrine of Loyal Legions, and then for 3 tap, sacrifice Shrine of Loyal Legions, put a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token on the battlefield for each charge counter on Shrine of Loyal Legions. So, that's a mouthful, but Zirda will see that, and then there'll only be 1 in tap to sacrifice, but we're going to keep that for quite a while, and then only use that ability when we think it's about to die. So that way we get more, a lot more creatures. Thematic Compass is next. For 2, it's an artifact. For 3, tap, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, transform Thematic Compass. And then, again, Zirda is going to see this, and so that makes it into 1. So for 1, tap, search for a land. This is especially helpful if you don't have a land to play. Then you pay the 1, tap, and then play the land, and then it makes up for itself. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, transform Thematic Compass, as I said. It transforms into Spire of Vraska. It's a land. It says transforms from Thematic Compass, but obviously we wouldn't be talking about it if it didn't. First, add colorless to your mana pool, and then untap target attacking creature an opponent controls, remove it from combat. So since we get a whole bunch of small tokens wandering around, we really don't want to be dealing with our opponent swinging at us with stuff. So whenever we can, we'll tap this and then untap that attacking creature. Arcane Encyclopedia, not a good card, but in this deck it's relatively good. For 3, it's an artifact, pay 3, tap, draw a card, so now it's 1, tap, draw a card. So basically this made this card even better in this deck, or this commander made this card even better because it wouldn't really be worth it to pay 3 to draw a card. Especially if you can't do that again. Boros Cluestone, for 3, it's an artifact. Tap, add red or white to your mana pool, and then pay red and white, tap, sacrifice Boros Cluestone, draw a card. Boros Key Ruin, for 3, it's an artifact. Tap, add either color, and then for red-white, it becomes a 1/1 red-white soldier artifact creature with double strike until end of turn. So the reason I have this in here actually isn't for the mana ability, but it's actually for the Scroll of Masters. So as we get those lore counters, then once we tap it and give it those to the Key Ruin, basically, now the Key Ruin becomes whatever it is. So say we have 7 lore counters, so now it becomes an 8/8 with double strike. So yeah, so that means the Key Ruin will be hitting pretty hard. Boros Lockstone's next. For 3, it's an artifact. Taps for either our colors, and then tap Boros 4 times, and then tap, sacrifice Boros Locket, draw 2 cards. So the Cluestone draws us 1 card, Boros Locket draws us 2 cards. Great Sword's next. For 3, it's an artifact equipment. Equipped a creature gets +3/+0. Equipped is 3, but with Zirda, it's only 1. Jaloom Tome. I don't know if anyone's seen this card before, but for 3, it's an artifact. Pay 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card from your hand. Yeah. So Boros has a hard time drawing cards. This will help out with that a lot. Manalith is next. For 3, it's an artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Yeah, this is basically just a mana rock. So, Nuisance Engine. For 3, it's an artifact. Pay 2 and tap. Put a 0/1 pest artifact creature token into play. Or with Zirda, this is only 1, so pay 1 and tap and make a creature token. So yeah, we're getting a whole bunch of life doing this. Oketra's Monument's next. For 3, it's a legendary artifact. White creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Now, there aren't many of them, but Umori Shepherd, Ray of the Dawnbringer are very hard to cast, especially since they need multiple pips of white. And then also Zirda counts as a white spell too. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So once you have Oketra's Monument out, as you use Umori Shepherd, you actually want to return those the creatures to your hand before you play them, instead of using the planes, because that's not considered a cast. So that makes Oketra's Monument a little better. Seer's Lantern is next. For 3, it's an artifact. Tap for it. adds colorless to our mana pool, or pay 2 and tap scry 1. So with the Zirda out, you pay 1, scry 1. Scry says look at the top card of your library. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. So the way I had this working, Seer's Lantern would allow us to look at the top card of our library, and then Explorer Scope, when we attack with a creature, if that card that we looked at was a land, then we get to put it on the battlefield tapped. So that's just another way to ramp in this deck. Now, it's a 2-card, well, 3-card since it needs to go on a creature. It's a 3-card package, but it's pretty easy to do, especially since it's really cheap. Titan's Forge next for 3. It's an artifact. Pay 3 tap, put a charge counter on Titan Forge, and then tap, remove 3 charge counters from Titan Forge, put a 9/9 colorless golem artifact creature token onto the battlefield. So yeah, Zirda is going to make this 1, so every turn we pay 1 and tap it, put a charge counter, and then once we get the chance, we'll remove 3 and then put a 9/9. So a 9/9 waiting every 3 turns, that's actually really good, especially since we didn't have to put 9 mana into it, we only had to put 3. Trepidation Blades next for 3. It's an artifact equipment. When equipped creature attacks, defending player reveals the top card of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card. The creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each card revealed this way. That player puts the revealed cards into his or her graveyard. The equip cost is 2. So, basically, if we get to the point where we need to swing with Zirda to kill everything, Trepidation Blade will maybe give us just enough damage to kill one of our opponents with combat damage. Now, unfortunately, Zirda is only a 3-drop, or it's only a 3/3, so that's not very good to be swinging with, but regardless, it's still pretty nice. And then Trepidation Blade can also go on any of the other creatures, especially Mary Shepherd, Maria Dawnbreaker, or the Boros Key Ruin if it's into a creature, and then it just deals even more damage. Whirlermaker for 3, it's an artifact, pay 4 tap, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So 2 for a 1/1, not so good, but again, Altar of the Brood, Anointed Priest make these worth it. So yeah, it's definitely going to be worth it. So instead of just being paying 4 and making a Thopter token, you also gain 1 life and then mill each opponent 1. Now with Zirda out, that makes 2, so 2 for making a token, gaining a life, and milling 3 cards. I think that's good. Clock of Omens next for 4. It's an artifact. Tap 2 untapped artifact you control. Tap untap target artifact, so there are a whole bunch of these that don't tap, like the equipments. Equipments don't care if they're tapped or not. So you can you can tap the equipments and then untap things like the Titan's Forge, and then you're able to tap Titan's Forge again. So if you're at 2 counters, you put a 3rd counter on there, then you can use the Clock of Omens to tap 2 of the equipment, and then untap Titan Forge, tap Titan Forge again, make a 9/9. Echo Chambers next for 4. It's an artifact. Pay 4, tap. Target opponent chooses target creature he or she controls. Put a token creature into play and treat it as a copy of that creature. The token creature is unaffected by summoning sickness. And then at end of this turn, remove the token creature from the game. Play this ability as a sorcery. So I don't really like this card per se. With Clock of Omens, this could be pretty fun, especially if they choose artifact creatures. But the way this works is once we choose the opponent, they have to choose which creature they make, but we get which creature we get to make a copy of that token, of that creature, and then we get to swing at opponent. So basically what we'll do is we'll choose an opponent that's got something big, like something with Annihilator. We'll say, hey, we won't swing at you if you let us copy this. If they do let us copy it, then we swing at one of our other opponents, and then they sacrifice stuff. Now, what I don't like is that the token gets removed from the game, but it also triggers all enter the battlefield effects. So if you have an opponent that just has a Solemn Simulacrum, then you can play it, go grab a land, or you can play, well, basically anything that has an enter the battlefield effect you'd preferably want. And then also having Phyrexian Rebirth is awesome, because once you've destroyed everything, then anything that had Indestructible is all that'll be left, and then you can use Echo Chambers to make a copy of one of those. Hornet Cannon next for 4. It's an artifact. Pay 3 tap. Put a Hornet token into play. Treat this token as a 1/1 artifact creature with flying that is unaffected by summoning sickness, or it can attack. Basically, it has haste. And at the end of turn, destroy the token. So I don't really like this. Again, pay 1 tap. make a 1/1, not bad. You also get the life from the Anointed Priest, and then also the trigger from the Altar of the Brood. So for 1, that's really good, but unfortunately, destroy the token at the end of turn. So we can only have 1 of those at a time. Now, granted, with Zirda out, this only costs 1, so it's a lot better than it could be, but it also could be better. Moon Silver Spear is next for 4. It's an artifact equipment. Equipped creature has first strike, so that's going to go on Zirda, probably, or basically whatever you want it to be on. And then whenever equipped creature attacks, put a 4/4 White Angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. It has equipped 4. So with Zirda out, it only has equipped 2. So basically, put this on something that you want to swing with every turn, whatever possibly you're putting all the other equipment on, and then it has first strike. And then also when it attacks, you make a 4/4 White Angel. So having a gang of White Angels, probably good. Seer Sundial for 4, it's an artifact, landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. Now Zirda, I don't think works that way, which I can't see. Let's see. So yeah, activated abilities. So that does not count for Seer Sundial because that's when a land enters, so it's triggered. But regardless, we can draw a card for 2 mana, and then we're probably going to have more than 2 mana. We have lots of land, we have lots of ways to ramp, so Seer Sundial, perfect in this deck. The Hive is next for 5. It's an artifact. Pay 5, tap, put a 1/1 insect artifact creature token with flying named Wasp into play. This one doesn't die, but it also costs 3 if Zirda's out, so 3 for a 1/1. Dreamstone Hedron is next for 6. It's an artifact. Tap, it adds 3 mana to your mana pool, or pay 3, tap, sacrifice it, draw 3 cards. Again, Zirda sees it if because I don't know the gender, if it is in play, then it only costs 1, tap, sacrifice, Dreamstone Hedron, then you draw 3 cards. So 1 for 3 is good, and then also if you have a land, play it. If a Mary Shepherd's out, return Dreamstone Hedron to the battlefield, and then you can do it again. Gaunthy's Aetherheart for 6. It's a legendary artifact. When it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy counters, and then pay 6 to 8. Pay 8 energy counters, exile Gaunthy's Aetherheart, take an extra turn after this one. So we're going to be making a whole bunch of tokens. If it gets to the point where we can make a whole bunch of tokens, then what we'll do is we'll end up using this ability, and then we'll be able to swing with them on our next turn. Serpent Generator for 6 is an artifact. Pay 4 and tap. Put a 1/1 colorless snake artifact creature token on the battlefield. It has whenever this creature deals damage to a player, that player gets a poison counter. So this is Infect. And then also, Zirda would make that into 2. So 2 and tap. Make a 1/1 snake with Infect. Infect is what I like. Most opponents are going to see the Serpent Generator, and they're going to be like, wow, I can't believe you're playing that, but it's good. And then also, what I don't like is if you make the snake bigger, since it says whenever this creature deals damage to a player, that player gets a poison counter. So even if it becomes a 3/3 somehow, not saying how, but even if it becomes a 3/3, then they will not get 2 more additional poison counters when it swings. It only gets 1. That's the only downside of poison compared to Infect. Infect deals that any damage dealt is dealt as poison. So next are the enchantments. Intangible Virtue for 1 and white. It's an enchantment. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. Well, since there are a lot of creature tokens, why not? So now we get a whole bunch of 2/2s with vigilance. So that makes most of these cards like the Hive better, because now instead of making a 1/1 with flying, now you get a 2/2 with flying and vigilance. Hammer of Perforos is next for 1, a red and a red. You get a legendary enchantment artifact. Creatures you control have haste. And then pay 2 and a red, tap, sacrifice land. Put a 3/3 colorless golem enchantment artifact creature token on the battlefield. Now, we don't have ways to get lands back, so preferably you're not using that bottom ability. But if you have to, if Zirda's out, it only costs red. So that's actually really good for a 3/3. Now, you do lose the land permanently, but it's okay. Also, creatures having haste is important, seeing as most of these are going to make tokens that and then we'll be able to swing with them. That's basically all I want. Cast Out is next for 3 and a white. It's an enchantment flash. When Cast Out enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield, and then the cycling cost white. This is just a removal spell. That's it. Nothing important about this. Trove of Temptation for 3 and a red. It's an enchantment. Each opponent must attack you or a planeswalker you control with at least one creature each combat if able. And then at the beginning of your end step, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Now, is it worth being swung at every turn for 1 treasure? It's your end step. No, not really. But we make a whole bunch of tokens, so we can just block our opponent's stuff and then kill it. And we will only have lost the mana that it costs to make those tokens, but we can make the tokens again. Dictate of Heliod is the last enchantment for 3 a white and a white. It's an enchantment with flash. Creatures you control get +2/+2. So now let's go back to the Hive again. So instead of for 5 tap, make a 1/1 with flying. Now we get a 3/3 with flying. So is that 5 worth it? No. But with Zirda out, it's 3. So 3 for a 3/3 with flying. Yes, that's worth it. Intangible Virtue and Dictate of Heliod will make it 4, and Vigilance and flying. So it's just basically how you look at it. Last but not least, we have the lands. Boros Garrison enters the battlefield tapped. When it comes into play, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Boros Guildgate is the gate in the Boros colors, so it enters tapped, and then pay red or white. It makes red or white. Cathedral of War. Cathedral of War is a land. When it enters the battlefield, it enters tapped. Exalted, whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and then tap, add colorless to your mana pool. Now, there are going to be quite a few times where we're going to have stuff attacking by itself, and if we do, it gets a free +1/+1, so Cathedral of War, pretty interesting. Umori the Sky Ruin, it's basically Umori Shepherd's land. Umori the Sky Ruin enters the battlefield tapped. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then tap, add white to your mana pool. Now, preferably, we're returning the token makers with Umori the Sky Ruin, seeing as we care about tokens. Also, returning Umori Shepherd or the Umori Angel are also super important. We want all 3 out if we can help it, but if we can't, use Umori the Sky Ruin to get whatever creature you can. Mistveil Plains is next. It's a land, plains. It enters the battlefield tapped, and then pay white to tap. Put target card in your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Play this ability only if you control 2 or more white permanents. Now, more than likely, we're going to have more than 2 or more. We're going to have more than 2 white permanents. So basically, this basically says white, put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Now, this is the only way we have to get lands back. Now, we don't have many ways to search for lands, or at least that are super effective like that. But being able to do this will make it so if we make tokens with Hammer of Perforals, we can get them back, or get the lands that we sacrificed back. There are 14 mountains, 15 plains, because we need a whole bunch of them for Umori the Sky Ruin and Umori Shepherd. Rogue's Passage is next. It's a land, tap, add to your mana pool, or 4 tap, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So we got quite a few things that'll make our creatures huge and really scary. And then also Zirda will say pay 2 and tap, makes the creature unblockable. So, yeah. Last but not least is Urza's Factory. It's a land. It says Urza's in the tagline, which is weird. But tap, add 1 to your mana pool, and then or pay 7 and tap, make a 2/2 assembly worker artifact creature token into play. So 5 for a 2/2, not so good, but again, Intangible Virtue, Hammer of Perforos, Dictate of Heliod make these worth it. So now instead of 2/2 with Dictate of Heliod, that's 4. Add Intangible Virtue, that's 5 with Vigilance. Add Hammer of Perforos, and that's 5 with Vigilance and Haste. So that basically makes it worth it, because 7 for a 5 is pretty good. Anyways, that is the end of this deck tech. Again, no music. I had my regular computer fixed, but that didn't last very long. So we're going to be continuing with this format for a little bit. Just bear with me. I might find some extra music laying around, but I don't really have that right now. So anyways, thanks for the listen. If you would, please like, comment, subscribe. Then also follow on YouTube at MTGAnonymous1. Follow on Twitter at MTGAnonymous1. Follow on either Stitcher or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. However you listen to podcasts, follow at Altar of the Brood. Then also you can find us at Podcorn at Altar of the Brood, excuse me. So anyways, thank you for listening to the video, and I will see you next time. Later.